So,
Awesome.
Franny, welcome. Welcome.
Thanks.
This is our podcast called The Secrets of Yoni Art. And you are not only a Yoni artist, you are a Yoni art champion. You're a Yoni champion. You're a vulva champion. You're a vagina champion. And so, for those of you who don't know, Fran Bouwman is a educator. She is the founder of Viva La Flying Vulva, which is a not-for-profit dedicated to the vulvic space, including the vaginal space, the yoni space, and she is an advocate and a comedian and a performer.
All of the
Yes,
above.
yeah. Welcome, Franny. Thank you so much for chatting and telling us more about the work that you do and about your yoni art. We're going to talk obviously about the vulva forest walk and also about your performance, which is upcoming at the Registry Theatre in Kitchener on Tuesday, June the 16th, I believe at 7 p.m., called This Is My Vulva. So maybe we could start there, and then I'm going to ask you questions about how all of this came about.
Yeah, okay. So the performance, the show, This Is My Vulva, it's been a slow evolution and actually had its origins in the vulva walk. So, and that also has a long history, but I'm just going to start briefly with the vulva walk, which was an incarnation that happened here in my forest. And because actually, the piece that was discovered here in my forest is now in your gallery,
Yes,
which I'm thrilled because it deserves a larger audience. It's a spectacular piece of
absolutely.
Yoni art that Mother Nature herself created, and luckily I discovered. And so, just being here in this environment where I discovered that spectacular Yoni in the first place, I thought, well, this is the space that I want to invite people into to be able to explore the history of the yoni and the vulva, be able to feel like they're in a safe place because they're surrounded by trees and by nature and by a gentle wind and butterflies and mosquitoes. It's mosquito season. But yes, all of it has just been a beautiful environment to be able to invite people in to see Yoni art, to see live performance. I mean, I was lucky enough to have you last year perform one of your pieces from your album, which was spectacular, and I had some doulas perform as well. But one of the pieces that I created for the Forest Vulva Walk was a series of short stories about how different women from different walks of life and different ages and different histories felt about their own vulva. And then I thought, oh, well, wouldn't it be cool if I had an audio version of that, not just a written version? So then I had a slew of incredible women in my life who volunteered to do the audio version. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to have like put that to video and like actually put like an image to those audios? And then that happened, and I'm like, well, that deserves a bigger audience. So then I thought, well, hell, why not create a theatrical performance with all of this where I can incorporate the film and the audio and the stories and then bring the stories to life through dance, right? So then I thought, well, the dancer has to have a spectacular costume. So then it was just like, okay, now I have to design these beautiful vulva costumes with headpieces, and then the labia would be these wings, and then I'm like, oh, but I can't just have it artistic. It can't be like, because there's a bigger message here. So I thought I've got to include my intellectual, historical personality and bring that to life too. So then intersection, like the intersection between all of these vignettes is me talking about stuff, just the stuff that informs us historically in terms of society, in terms of religion, in terms of philosophy, in terms of how did we get to a place where so many women on the planet feel tremendously disconnected or ashamed or awkward about a glorious part of our being and our body. So I kind of give context to all of the vignettes so that people can then grasp and embody and bring it into both their mind and their body. And that was the thrust of this performance, is to include all of those aspects so that it would land with pretty much anyone. That's the goal. It's like anyone who comes to the show, I think, can have access to it landing. That and judging from what people have said about seeing it and being there and being a part of it, it's really been celebrated and embodied, and the excitement around seeing it continue, and just people saying that this is very valuable information. So it's been really affirming for me, because as you know, Melissa, sometimes we feel like we're in a bit of a vacuum, a bit of a weird bubble. It's just like, this is kind of like, how did I get into vulva art and vulva language? And a lot of people are also looking at us going, yeah, that's kind of weird. But when you're in it, for as long as you and I have been in it, it's not weird at all. It just brings it right back home, in terms of this has been disconnected from us, and it's time to reclaim all of it. So,
and actually, I just love to hear how it emerged. I didn't even know that story, and I know it's been well received. You've performed it in Collingwood, and where was the second performance?
Yeah, no, so we did a first performance in Collingwood, and then the response was so great that we thought, you know what, let's do it again. And then the second incarnation, I really wanted to have it in a proper theater, because I had envisioned, the lighting. I wanted the lighting as part of the creation, right? Because, well, as you know, theater is a magical place, and it's encased in its own way of being in terms of lighting and sound and all the artistry around that. So we brought it to life a second time then at the Simcoe Street Theatre in Collingwood, and that was really a tremendous shift in terms of the show. And so at Registry Theatre it'll be the same thing, because of course we have all the fancy doodads, and I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. So I want to shift gears for a second, because I want to know a little bit more about how all of this emerged. Are you able to tell your history of yourself as an educator, and how you came into this particular space? How did this transpire that you came to start this not-for-profit Viva la Flying Vulva?
Let's start with the beginning. Grew up in a pretty hardcore Dutch Christian Reformed home. So my world was basically, much of it was through a patriarchal lens. That from the get-go created a lot of anxiety in my little body, where, when you're singing the hymns and doing the prayers, and, I understood that none of it is about my gender. All of it is about the male gender. And so right away out the gate, it felt like somehow my being wasn't worth as much. So then I start traversing through the world that way. Not as much, not as valued, not as worthy, we're not singing about the female, we're not reverent, like praying to the female, none of that's happening. It's all male oriented. So right out the gate, as just a wee kid, right, that energy is now in my being, and sort of determining a lot of my choices and a lot of my behavior. But that unsettling energy that was in me, then it was like, it's bothersome. I knew it bothered me. So then, when I went to U of T, it was like, no, I want to figure this out. I want to figure out all of this. So then I started studying philosophy, and then I started studying religion, because a lot of this stuff was, I felt, based in the mythologies that different societies decided to attach themselves to. So I wanted to figure that out. Now, I can't say it brought me any peace. It brought me ultimately more frustration, and more anger and more disconnect, and also sometimes a feeling of like hopelessness. Like this was huge. Like my understanding of like taking off the layers, it was this like, wow, do I ever feel like the woman's voice and the female voice is just not included in any of the literature. And any, like, here I'm sitting with my peers in a tutorial and we're discussing a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm feeling like, where's my voice though? Like, I can't even reference my experience through another woman, because the majority of the philosophers we're talking about are male, and the majority of the religious leaders are male. So again, it was just like, this is really frustrating me. So then, as an artist, I'm a sculptor. So then one of my outlets was for sure creating feminist art. I started to create feminist art, telling feminist stories, telling about life, just how I feel life is through a female lens. I wanted to bring that out through my artistic practice, which I did. And I also know quite a bit of my art has made people feel uncomfortable, but also a lot of my art has made people feel relieved, because it's a narrative that, we don't get to see too often. So then, of course, it's just a natural progression from there, Melissa, in terms of, eventually I'm going to start to understand that it wasn't always like this. There was a time when women were revered, and in fact, revered it specifically towards our ability to bring life to the planet, but also, interestingly, the importance of us experiencing pleasure through our vulva. And that comes from the Sumerian Inanna, right? Who says, like, look at my wondrous vulva, and had worshippers that came and just, their intent was just to give her pleasure. So, the more you start getting these like tiny little snippets of like his history, the more you're like, hell yeah, these stories also deserve a place in our society. And as you know, carving away at that is no easy feat. Like, we are trying to carve away in a patriarchy, just a tiny little space for ourselves to exist. But it's a bit of like climbing up the mountain with the boulder.
Okay, so you started feminist art, but how did the vulva art part of it come into play? Like, how did that emerge? Like that, and then to start the not-for-profit Viva la Flying Vulva.
So that journey came through the piece that's in your gallery.
Oh.
So that beautiful vulva piece. Yeah, that was the impetus to this whole journey, because I had discovered it, thought it was beautiful, put it in my gallery here on the property. And then I had applied to be on one of those like art tours, right? Where you go from art house to art house in the country. They're really popular here. And so then I had to have a committee come over to the gallery to see if my art was good enough. And so they came in, and it's always a bit of an intimidating situation where, you're being scrutinized. Anyway, there's a big reaction to the vulva piece that's in your gallery right now. It was a big reaction, big uncomfortable reaction. And I could feel it, right in my womb space. It was like, this is not being accepted. There's a lot of negative energy happening in this gallery right now. And so when they left, I called the woman who set it up with me, and I said, what happened there? And she said, well, and it was a man who was a head of the committee at that point, said big fat no to me being part of the art tour. Because he had said to the committee that he thought it was disgusting and offensive. And I'm like, I didn't even make it. Like, it's a tree, like Mother Nature made it. Like, I didn't. How can it be disgusting? Anyway, how can any of this be disgusting? As you know, Melissa, is a question that is like, huh? And this is a part of our biology. This is our body. How can our body be deemed disgusting? It's like saying my hand is disgusting. It's absurd. Anyway, so that's how it all started. That made me really uncomfortable, made me go, whoa, really? Is that really still happening? Do people really still have this attitude? It was a bit of because I was a feminist artist at that point, so I didn't I'm in my bubble with my people, right? So we're all like on the same journey. So I didn't really realize that outside of my bubble, that it's still, there's a lot of like tension and people not accepting. So anyway, the woman said, don't worry about it. We're gonna fix this. We're gonna make it happen. Okay, so they overrode him, which was great. I was allowed to be part of the tour. But then I put the piece up in Collingwood, in a gallery in Collingwood on the main street there. And it got a wildly wonderful reception on opening night. But then as it sat there, it was starting to get negative attention, negative commentary, to the point where the gallery owners were too uncomfortable and wanted me to take it out. So then again, I'm like, shit, really? Wow. Okay. This is bigger than I realized. And then that got me to start reading. Then I started to read. Then I was like, I'm really curious why. How did we get here that an essential part of our being is deemed as shameful or problematic, or we shouldn't even say the word. And then I started doing my own personal reflection and personal journey to realize too how much I had been affected, how much my sexuality and sensuality had been affected, and how dissociative I had been and have been with partners, but also just with myself, right? Like I went on a pretty deep dive as well, just to sort out my own layers of shame and sadness and trauma. Like all women, I've had my share of, sexual assault and sexual trauma. So yeah, it just made me realize this is an important topic. And I'm going to do this weird thing called Viva la Flying Vulva.
And why?
But it's certainly not like a life choice that I would have thought I would have made 20 years ago. Like, no, I didn't think that was going to happen, but I'm glad it happened. Because again, like the more I speak to you and other women who are on a similar journey, the more affirmed it is, like in terms of the importance of the work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. And why did you add flying vulva? What's the symbolism behind that?
Freedom, right? To find our freedom, to find our joy. Because I personally, again, like I felt really heavy under this this cloud. I feel like it's been a cloud. It's not allowed me to enjoy or see myself in a beautiful way, in a beautiful context. So I really did want to fly free from that, right? So that's why I attached the wings to the vulva, because it's just like, I know we're not there yet, but that the intention is to get there, right? And I'm not even there yet. Like, despite how long I've been working at this and my own personal journey, but also out there in society, like I still struggle. I still struggle with my own shame, like when I have to put up posters and stuff, right? And then, you're walking into like a store and you have to go, hi, I'm from Viva la Flying Vulva, and I'm putting on this show called This Is My Vulva. And then you can feel like the energy shifting in the room, and the people in the store are getting, like, what's happening here? So, and sometimes I have a feeling of dread, like I don't want to put up posters. Like it's just like, I hate putting up posters. That's because my experience is so uncomfortable, right? So of course, the conditioning is putting up posters is a bad experience. That is true. And it's really, really hard to override that. And I'm not saying every situation's like that. There's lots of store owners and people who seem excited and receptive to what I have to say about why in terms of why I'm doing this work. But I don't know if you ever saw that post, but I was also experiencing, I'd put a poster up and then they would come down.
How did you get the word out about your performances in Collingwood? And the turnout there, like, how did that transpire? Just social media?
No. Luckily, it's with a new space in Collingwood, an alternative space that's opened up, which is called Resonance. And Resonance is all again about healing. So they provide all kinds of alternative healing activities, ecstatic dance, meditation, regular dance, art, like you name it, like that's all being funneled through there. So when Paz, who runs the place, heard about my work and what I was doing, he was like, this is a perfect fit for residents. He said, you know, people are really going to respond to this. And so it was a lovely sort of collaborative experience to have like him and his community support the show and support the vision, right? And then once we did it, we realized, like after the huge positive response, it was like, we should do it again. And then you were like, hey, bring it to Kitchener, and because I'm doing this vulva vagina exhibition. And I'm like, great, let's do it.
So I want to know a little bit more about your art, because you have been sculpting for some time now. Can you tell us a little bit more about your art background and how you came to be an artist?
I never, as a kid, I didn't really do any art, certainly not as a university student. Like I wasn't on a trajectory to be an artist. I never took art classes, nothing. So this experience happened at U of T, where I was studying. And just shortly before that, my brother had purchased a necklace from Cairo, Egypt, for me, which was hieroglyphs of my name and then the symbol of the female on the bottom. Beautiful. And I was wearing this necklace at Hart House, studying at Hart House at U of T, when this man came in, very disheveled looking man, like with the Einstein hair and like big, huge like Coke bottle glasses, right, where to make your eyes like magnified, and really grisly, pockmarked face. Anyway, like, so, you know, a bit of an intimidating looking character. And he sat across the table from me and was just staring at me, very uncomfortable. So, you know, I had my Walkman on. Remember Walkmans? Anyway, I had my Walkman on and took them off, and I said, hey, you know, is there something? Like, because you're just sitting here looking at me, it's actually making me feel quite uncomfortable. And he said, well, actually, if it's okay, I'd like to come and sit beside you and hold your necklace. And even though that's so kooky of a request, for some reason, I said yes. I said, yeah, sure. So he sat beside me. And so now I'm like, he's really close, right? Like I can see all his marks in his face and all of his wrinkles. Like he was definitely in his 60s, and I'm in my 20s. So he holds the necklace for quite some time, and my heart's beating, right? And I'm kind of sweating, because it's like, this is a very odd experience. And I felt a whole bunch of energy around it. Anyway, he let go of the necklace. He opens his eyes and he says, we've got work to do. And I'm like, huh? Long story short, our very first session. So he said, can we meet here every week? So I agreed to that. And our very first session, he held my hands and he closed his eyes. And when he opened them, he said, you're a sculptor. I said, no, I've never done any sculpture in my life. And he said, no, you're a sculptor. I'm like, no, really, I'm so not. I've never done anything. Like nothing. I haven't even worked with clay. I haven't even done, Play-Doh, nothing. He said, well, because he used to be a professor at OCAD. So he said, I'm going to sign you up for a sculpture class. I'm at OCAD, and I'm going to talk to the professor there. And so she's going to know you're going to come. It was an evening class. So I was so nervous because it's like, intimidating. I'm going to walk into a room full of sculptures and sculptors doing sculptures. And there's like the nude model in the center. Anyway, she sets me up with all of the scaffolding for the sculpture and the clay and everything else. And I get to work. And wow, what'd you know? I'm a sculptor. Yeah, nutty, right?
So
Yeah,
what was this
yeah,
gentleman's
nutty.
name? What's his story?
Jeff Stone. Jeff Stone was his name, but that wasn't his real name. Interestingly, I didn't know this until much later. He had a Jewish name that his family had decided to change for who knows what reasons at that time. We can probably guess. So he had changed his name. So I don't know what his original name was, but then he disappeared. So then once I got my art career off the ground, I was like, I really want to find Jeff Stone. I want to find him. So I put it on my website saying, this is what happened. This is how I became an artist. I really want to find him and have another conversation with him. Anyway, a woman who was also looking for him came across my call to find him. So she calls me up and she says, come and meet me in Toronto and we can share stories. She said, we're not the only ones. There's a whole group of us. Okay, so this is something he just did. He went into your life. So this woman was an incredible singer. Okay, and so it's so fun because she played me her CD and showed me some of the artwork that he had left her. Anyway, so there was a whole group of us trying to find him. And then literally a week after I met her, she called me and said, we were so close, but he passed in Montreal last week. Oh, boo. Yeah. So I never got to have that conversation, Melissa. Yeah. Anyway.
It's almost like he was like an earth angel.
He was something. He was something. He was definitely like helping people see their creative selves, and then sending them on their way, and then he would just exit. And he just exited from my life. I couldn't find him. Yeah. I went to his apartment. The landlord said, no, he just left. He just packed everything up and left and didn't leave a forwarding address, like nothing. Anyway. Amazing. I know. Like it's the most unlikely story of how'd you become an artist. Yeah, but that's how I became an artist. Yeah.
Well, source guidance.
Pretty wild.
That's guidance from source, Fran.
Yeah. So here I am, like what, 30 years later.
Sorry, you focus on sculpture, but you also focus on, do you do any painting? What kind of art modalities do you focus on?
Sculpture.
Only sculpture.
Yeah, primarily. I mean, I've been an art teacher off and on forever, and I've done art workshops off and on forever. And so in which case, yes, I have some abilities when it comes to painting and other art forms. So like for instance, like right now I just finished taking the art of psychology course from a university in British Columbia. And so I really had to start grappling with mediums I wasn't that familiar with, right? Like here I am drawing again and painting and doing collage work. And yeah, it really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Like to not be teaching these things, but actually having to produce the work myself. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey that way.
And you carve with clay, but you also carve with wood. Is that correct?
Yeah. For most of my life, it was large wood sculptures. But then after, repetitive boom, 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 with a chisel and a mallet, like this whole part of my body is destroyed. Basically, I don't have any cartilage left in there. So it's just like bone on bone. So it was just too much pain. I just couldn't do it anymore. So then I had to switch over to clay.
Yeah, but could you not do chip carving? Could you not use a chip carver and just avoid that a little bit without having to do all
Listen,
sorts of...
even if I vacuum, like even just vacuuming triggers this whole pain body in here. Like I can't, no matter how hard I try, I cannot seem. So any sort of like movement that's even small like this just flares that whole area. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah,
So
it's
now
too
you've
bad.
turned mainly
So I have to be very careful.
Now you've turned mainly to clay. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've seen your art. It's not just Yoni art. It's not just feminist art. What themes or ideas inspire your work?
Like aside from the feminist piece, obviously I'm really influenced by nature, by spirit, and sometimes just by money. Like, you know, when I get a commission, when somebody says, hey, can you like make this? Yeah, I need to make money. Yes, I'll make that, even though I have no interest in that whatsoever. Like squirrels, do I really want to be like sculpting squirrels? No, I don't. But I'll do it so I can pay my mortgage. So it's always a mixed bag, and it's great when people like trust me just to create for them. I've also done portraits. Portraits are really tough. Trying to capture people. In a static state, like that's the tallest order of all tall orders when it comes to art.
Mm-hmm. So sculpting
people most artists, sculpting pieces and sometimes entire bodies. Yes, like I once did an entire anyway. Most artists say no to those commissions because it's so personal, right? Yes. So like the person looking at your art might go, oh, really? No, that's not me. No, it's a lot of pressure. I would say that I've successfully done it twice and unsuccessfully 3 times. Yeah. Anyway, it's a crapshoot for sure. Yeah.
You're exploring themes though in your work. So beyond just like the general theme of feminism or freedom, what themes inspire the work that you do, and some of the more, for lack of a better term, haunting kinds of forms that you create?
For sure, in terms of my own, when I experience something that's a struggle, then I will often use art as a transformative, healing, therapeutic way to get that out, like to externalize my own stuff out there. So, sorry, that's my dog. So sometimes that sort of haunting presence or even political presence will come out. When I worked up in northern Quebec with the Cree, and I had to really research and listen to a lot of stories about Quebec Hydro, right? And how Quebec Hydro like totally changed the landscape and created all this distress and took a lot of their rivers, right? And so what do I do with all that? I have to create an art piece, right? And it's not like, that's why a lot of my art, that kind of art, doesn't sell, because it's not happy art. It's art that means something in terms of the human experience.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any art role models? And if so, who are they and why do you look up to them?
Oh, that's, there are really so many. Interesting, like Frida Kahlo has always been a big one for me. I was so intrigued by, hang on for a sec. I was so intrigued by her fearlessness, what seemed like fearlessness in terms of approaching pain and struggle, and being so forthright to express her pain and struggle in a visual way, without apology. And I thought, wow, like that for me really gave me the courage and impetus to do that as well, in my work, just to go, yeah, it doesn't have to be happy art. Art can exist in all kinds of ways. It does mean that it probably won't sell. There is that truth as well. In which case, with her, interestingly, I mean, it did sell. So I don't know what was going on in that time period that was like so. There was this receptivity to her art and to her pain. And maybe because it was just so extreme, right? That she was really transforming her own physical pain and trauma into a two-dimensional canvas. So yeah, like Cindy Sherman is also a really interesting artist for me in terms of how she was able, again, to really play with personas and identity and gender, and really challenging us in the most crazy ways and really intense ways. Like, I also really admired her courage with her work, and just how out of the box she was for her time. Anna Mendieta was another artist who like really intrigued me because she worked so much with the earth, right? She made all these earthworks with her body included in the earth, right? And in water, in fire, in land, in grass, it was sky. Like, yeah, like again, it was pretty revolutionary work at that time. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, but I'll give you my three.
Okay, wonderful. I love that. Were there any social or political events while you were growing up or recently that have affected the evolution of your art?
Oh, yeah, that's I mean, again, yes, like Morgenthaler, like when Dr. Morgenthaler was like being really, so he was the abortion doctor. Okay, so he was going against the law. He opened his abortion clinic in Toronto, was doing his thing. I'm just a teenager at that time. Okay, I'm just a teenager, and of course, like in my church, that was deemed as like, whoa, the devil's work is happening. And the Christian youth at that time were like coming together to organize protests in front of his clinics and stuff. I didn't go, okay? Because I remember again thinking, I don't understand this. I don't understand this intensity. There was a part of me that already knew then that the woman's voice was being annihilated. All that discomfort, right? All of those political events, and especially again, like watching, there were like court cases, and I can't remember the specifics and who and what and where, but I remember like in newspapers, like court cases about sexual assault or rape. And then again, so often the judge or the police deeming the female as responsible somehow for the assault or for the rape. And again, like reading these stories with such discomfort and such despair, like this despairing feeling in me, because already I had been experiencing this, right? I had been experiencing unwanted attention from men, and touch from men, and assault from men, and harassment at the workplace. Like, so when you're reading what's happening in the news or watching what's happening in the news, going, you're screwed. Okay? Like, know that. Like, that's what my brain is saying to me. Like, yes, these things which you know are wrong. I knew inherently they were wrong, but it was like, oh, well, nothing to be done. As you read in the news, no real justice, no real attention, no true empathy. Now, so much has changed, Melissa, since the time I have grown up, right? Like, we've made so much progress in such a short period of time in terms of our rights and our freedoms. You know, the Me Too movement was wow, wow, wow. Thank you, thank you. Really revolutionary. Changed so much perspective. Like, it really, I still look at that Me Too movement and think, I can't even believe that happened. That for me was a miraculous thing that even happened. And so great for me too. And I mean, so great for so many women to go, phew, right? Like, phew, like, finally I'm being seen, I'm being heard, I'm being sometimes believed. Right? And I say sometimes because, you know, we haven't completely turned that page. There's still a ton of work to go. But I would say on the political front, the social historical front, it's been, again, predominantly that line of the female, the woman being dismissed, being pushed down, being not heard, not legitimate, shamed. Like, all of that political stuff has motivated me to keep doing my art, to be a creator, even if it's just to, like, because, you know, I live in the middle of nowhere, right, in Grey County. But even if it's just to influence the small little pocket that I exist in, right? Yeah. Even if I can inspire a couple of gals in their 20s, great. I did my job. Yeah. So.
I have one last question for you. And it may seem obvious, and it may be something that you already covered. But I was wondering if you could just summarize and encapsulate why anyone should care about vulva art. Why should anyone care? I mean, you've had people come into your gallery. I've had people come into my gallery, affronted, filled with sheepish reactions, wanting to run from their own skin. And so I'm just wondering, if someone says, like, why bother in this? Like, what's the point? Like, why spend so much time bothering on this specific thing? And I was wondering if you could just encapsulate your response to that.
Yeah, in a nutshell, it's an untapped resource of joy for all genders, right? Like, the vulva is a place of joy. It's a place of joy. It's a place of wisdom. It's a place of pleasure. It's a place of history. It's a place of ancestry. And it's so untapped because it's been shrouded in all of this, ooh, it's evil, it's part of temptation, it leads to no good, you know, et cetera, that we've completely missed out on the narrative that this is a very beautiful and positive portal for all people, right? In terms of exploring just even the physicality of it, let alone everything else, but even the miraculous physicality of the vulva and the clitoris, right? Like how it's been designed to perform, how it's been designed to receive pleasure, how it's been designed to receive pleasure in a way that's not going to be painful if stimulated properly, right? Like just that part alone, but also that the vulva is so connected to all other parts of our being, right? Like, and the womb and the vagina, like that whole, like I call it the divine triptych is happening over here. All of these things are interconnected in terms of our knowledge systems. And when a being can start to acknowledge the sacredness of it, this is my experience anyway, is a sense of connection to something much greater, but also a sense of peace and calm that comes over me when I start to listen. It's It's a source of wisdom. And so when we can listen, we can find calm. It has the answers intuitively, right? It has the answers. And then so if you're a partner of a vulva owner, that too can be a great portal for you to discover, in terms of even being able to develop a sacred and divine relationship to and with, and then having that reflect back onto you. Like whenever any being on the planet is in service, right, and there's reciprocity in that relationship, if you start to understand how to open the vulva as a partner, like a flower, if you understand how to get that flower to open, boy, oh boy, are you gonna reap some incredible rewards, okay? Like you think you're putting in some effort, but what you're gonna get back in terms of the energy and the love and the sensuality and the excitement and the just tapping into something much greater. Like people just don't have a clue about this stuff, but it's possible. And when you give yourself some time to explore those things, then you're like, boy, are we all missing out. Yeah. Like a lot. I mean, some people are like totally invested. They're already on board. They're already experiencing, all of this loveliness and wondrousness of the vulva. But, I would say that's a pretty small pocket. I think that the rest of the world, the population of the world, could use some serious catching up. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. That's what
Thank
I think.
Thank you so much for telling me and the people watching about your profound journey to Viva la Flying Vulva, the Vulva Forest Walk. This is my vulva. You are a pioneer. You are an advocate. You are a visionary. You are a sage. You are an artist.
And I'm also just a gal living in the forest, but I appreciate all of those kind words. But that's the other thing I just want to bring some attention to. I am also just a person, and like we all are. And it's just nice to have conversation, Melissa. It's really lovely to have conversation, and the fact that you're opening up this space to have dialogue with so many different people. And hopefully, bit by bit, the portal opens. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, Franny. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for everything that you're doing.